Hi guys, I know it's been a while since I've posted anything and I'm sorry. I've been really busy, we've been really short-handed at my work, and well, doing any kind of healthcare when you're short-handed means you get to work a whole lot more than you want to. Oh well, I love my job, I wouldn't trade it in for anything. Anyways, um, today we're gonna read some Reddit paranormal stories, which I love going through, and at the end I will share with you some paranormal stories that I have gotten passed down to me from family and friends and stuff like that. So, how about we get snacks, get comfy? Let's start this video. All right, so the first one, sorry, I'm sitting on my hair, it's so long. The first one I found is called The Moving Keys and Stomping Ghosts. It is posted by Zealous Ideal I 836. I butchered that name. I'm sorry. Anyway. Oh snap. Okay. So they start off by saying, I'll give you a 2-for-1. I moved around a lot as a kid. We were the kind of family that would have boxes that would always go unopened and undistributed between moves. My dad was a good guy, but had issue with authority, so he usually had issues keeping a stable job for more than a year or so. When the lease was up, we'd move closer to his new job. Anyways, during one of these moves, my dad found a steal next to his job. It was an old 2-bed, 1-bath house with a detached garage. Sounds like a good deal. I want to say it was around $300 a month for rent. Really good deal. In 2003, apparently. Oh wow, I would have stole that too. Um, it was in a rough part of town. The landlord told us, I won't go into the specifics, but I'm required to tell you that someone had passed away in the house within the last 5 years. My dad saw a great deal and shrugged it off. We moved in soon after. Sorry. And things started very quickly. There were noises in the house all the time. It was like we had other people living there. It would generally be noises that you expect when other people were around. Things like drawers were opening and closing, doors swinging around on their own, water turning on in the bathroom and then back off. Nothing malicious was happening, so we just lived with it. Another weird quirk about the house was that the front door had a keyhole on both sides. So you cannot leave the door locked, or so you cannot leave the locked house unless you had the keys. So the key on both sides, you can't leave unless you, even if from the inside, you had to unlock the door to leave the house, is what he's saying. You can probably guess where this is going, but not a week or so after we moved in, we lost the keys. Boxes still littered the house, and we were still unpacking hell. So my dad, obviously stressed from the whole situation, started getting loud about the keys. He accused me of stealing them. He was cursing and being in general pain. Then, out of nowhere, we hear the keys hit the floor in the living room, right in front of the couch, right onto the floor. He picks them up, tries to rationalize what just happened, says fuck it, and leaves the house for work. Over the next few months, the stupid keys are the center of the activity. My dad would put them in a glass bowl on top of our tube TV every day after work, and somehow they would be moved by morning. My favorite spot by far was when we found them in a sealed box of pots and pans that we needed to unpack. I had those little handle holes on the side of the box, and it's like someone just shoved them into the hole out of spite. We all got a good laugh out of that one. Right now, you're probably like, okay, what's spine-chilling about some noises and some keys moving around? Well, here you go. The worst thing that happened fairly frequently was the stomping. Most nights around 2, 3 a.m., there'd be very heavy footsteps pacing the hallway outside of our bedrooms. I confirmed with my dad when I was older that yes, it kind of freaked him out too. We had been living in this place for about 8 months at this point, and I was probably around 8 years old. I heard the stomping one night, and I just couldn't take it. I screamed out in the hallway, "Stop stomping around. I need to sleep, to God damn it." 15 seconds of silence was abruptly interrupted by what sounded like a bull running full speed to my room. Then my door had 3 very aggressive slamming knocks, one after another. It was so loud, my dad woke up and came to check on me. My stomach started to turn, and I suddenly felt like I had to use the toilet. I was frozen in bed when I heard my dad call out to me, "You okay, buddy?" from his bedroom. I mustered up the courage to head out to the hallway. As I got up, I could tell something wasn't right. I was shaking like a leaf, and my bowels were trying to evaluate. I think he means evacuate while I was walking. I ran as fast as I could to the toilet, but it did not help. Oh no. There was a trail from the hallway between my bedroom and the toilet. My poor dad, worried about my safety, follows me into the bathroom to figure out what the hell just happened. I explained everything, crying on the toilet, making a mess of myself and the house. I was embarrassed and terrified. After this, my dad told me, "If you ever feel uncomfortable, you can come sleep in my room. Nothing can bug you when I'm around." Famous last words by Daddy, all the time said. I'm going to open my soda real quick. The final straw came a week later. Excuse me, sorry. My dad had been dating a girl for over a year, and she had been staying with us more and more. One of the nights she stayed over, they had a really minor fight right before bed. I think it was about cleaning chores. Anyways, they both went to bed grumpy about it. Right around that magic 2 to 3 a.m. mark, his girlfriend got yanked out of bed by one of her ankles and got dragged out of the bedroom and down the hallway. I'm sorry, but no. Do not touch me while I'm freaking sleeping. And do not drag me out of bed. I swear to everything that is holy, I would smite you. Just smite the hell out of you and cleanse the heck out of my house. You would be gone, that's for sure. By her count, she woke up after she was on the floor and felt someone pulling on her leg, and it took her a while to realize exactly what was happening. She shrieked, and whatever it was, let go. Got lucky. Didn't decide to go down some stairs or something. Hopefully there wasn't any stairs. She ran back into the bedroom and turned the lights on and explained the whole thing to my dad. He sent me off to an aunt's house and stayed in the house alone for a few months while looking for another place to go. Figured it would be safer without me there. During the unpacking and moving out of the house, my dad had some friends swing by to keep him company while he packed. Almost everyone who came by to help mentioned they saw a small white dog walking around right when they entered the house. Yeah, that place was haunted AF. I still think about it from time to time. Wonder if the people who live there now deal with the same stuff, or if it's all calmed down. Bonus extra DLC story. My dad's GF had brought a yoga ball to the house, and as a rambunctious 8-year-old, I wanted to play with it all the time. She tells me I can play with it, but I have to be careful. So we lightly toss it back and forth down this hallway, and after a minute or two, I toss the ball and it freezes mid-air before it makes it to her and comes right back to me. She was mortified. I was too young to realize what happened, and she didn't want to freak out her BF's 8-year-old son, me. So she quickly said she didn't want to play with it anymore, and we went and did something else. Yeah, sorry, you can have that ball. Have fun. Play to your heart's content, little ghosty. Bye-bye. That is hilarious. Oh my god. That was a good one. Let's see. The ghost of the goat man. Huh. All right. This is Mom Day's Prepper. This is a story I do not tell often, I promise sincerely, that this has scarred me for life, and although I have looked into psychological explanations for what I heard and natural explanations for what occurred, they remain unsatisfactory. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swore to my mother I heard voices in it. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. She figured they were just bumps in the night, and typical kids' nightmares material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that. They sounded different from one another, the way people's voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside of her bedroom door for my late night tinkles. It's pretty nice. I should add at this point that when walking out into the hall to go to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that would lead you into my living room on the first floor, as my mom's bedroom was on the second floor. On one such night, around Christmas, I woke and felt the need to relieve myself. I walked out from the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look!" And to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid, and it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what this light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into my house to know I was being a good boy? I was so excited I began walking down the stairs to greet him, picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness of my living room. That's when I heard him. A very strong masculine voice, different from the first, not at all like my father's. Not to say he isn't masculine, it's just distinctly different. He said, "Stop, right now. Go back up those stairs." I listened, turned around. What happened next, I am not sure. I would believe if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we woke the next morning, the poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs, some broken from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been the victims of a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broken in. There did not seem to be any reason this had happened. And then I saw it. And I kept quiet about it because I was so afraid that I could not force words out of my mouth. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were 3 indentations where the finish on the wood had been worn, almost as if in a forceful grip. Something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That was what the bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I do not like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night. If it's anything at all, but I can tell you that the reality was that something had physically acted upon 2 things in my house near the bottom of that stairwell. After this, I had never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank the man, masculine energy, who had stopped me from going down those stairs. This happened when I was 7 or 7.5, as I like to say at the time. I'm 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I am still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells. Well, yeah, that would be scary. That would be terrifying. I don't. I wouldn't be particularly happy about it. Huh. This one is called The Ghostly Phone Call by Drew Call. Let's see. This is kind of a little short story. Years ago, two friends and I were camping in a fall in a small tent, staggered with two of our heads on one side and one on the other. It was a silent and still night with fog developing in the moist PNW woods. What sounds like a muffled voice on a cell phone starts coming out from the center of the tent between all our heads. I heard someone keep asking, "Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?" My friends asked, "Are you hearing that?" At once, we all stood up and started shuffling around the tent looking for the phone. There is no phone in the tent. I looked to my friend on the other side of the tent and asked what they heard. It sounded like someone saying, "Hello? Can you hear me?" We all agreed this is what we heard, and that the sound was coming from the other side of the tent. The next morning, we find all our cell phones sitting in the car still, and there's no cell reception at the campground. Still sends shivers up my spine. Yeah, nope. It's a big nope. See, the electrically fascinated ghost. And this is uh, posted by JRock57. I used to sell HVAC in Michigan during college. There was this really awesome old dude that called for a new high efficiency furnace in his historic home in Depot Town near Ann Arbor. As I'm putting together the quote, we get to talking about the home and its history. He tells me that it was a part of the Underground Railroad and had a tunnel that led down to the train station, only about 500 yards away. I'll be honest, I was more focused on the sale than all the details he was laying out about the house. But one thing that made my ears perk up was the people that lived with him. He tells me about a few, but the one that stuck out was he said that there was a lady that was so fascinated with electricity that she would turn random lights on at random times. That would be kind of annoying. Yeah, that would be annoying. As I printing out the quote and going over the details and payment options with him, the light behind me turns on. Then the one across the room. Then the one in the kitchen. Then the one in the hallway. I just kind of got quiet and sunk a little in the seat. And the old dude raised his voice and said something like, "Okay, that's enough for today, sweetheart. We can do it again tomorrow." That's a little too familiar for me, I guess. Um, yeah. To this day, I don't know if the old dude was just having some fun with me or it was real. Side note, I closed the sale and the install team said there wasn't anything too wonky or out of the norm with this electricity. TLDR, did an HVAC quote for an old historical home turned out to have a light-loving specter. I wonder if it was just like a ghost from a different time. It was just like, wow, this is amazing. I don't have to light a candle to get light, you know? This one is called The Escaped Granny. And this is posted by Lawn underscore GB. Let's get into it. A friend of mine shared what his mother had shared to him. So basically, my friend's grandma has been ill and seeking medical attention in ICU from a local hospital. Fortunately, the operation was successful, and Granny made it out alive and well. A couple of days passed by, and when my friend's family come to visit her, is when she says the most obscure thing to my friend and his family, her daughter's family. She said that last night, after everyone had left, there was a shadow-like image that walked past the ICU door, stopped midway, looked right at her, and says, "The Pachitia?" I'm gonna butcher that, sorry. And say, "The Pachitia," which translates to, "You escaped, huh?" No, that's weird. That would be weird. Mm. This one's called The Office Ghost. No, I don't like that one. Ooh. This is um, Childhood Encounter by Kim Young Funk. And she goes on to say, he or she, sorry, um, when I was in elementary school, I shared a queen size bed with my older sister and our family dog. I met that looked like a short haired lassie. Yeah, would sleep at the foot of our bed every night. When I was about 6 years old, I woke up one night around midnight and saw a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure was entirely in black without any eyes or a face. That's my childhood nightmare. Or no, black eyes really did things to me. I don't know why, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, I tried to wake my sister up, but she rolled over to go back to sleep. My sister must have accidentally kicked the dog because the dog woke up and raised her head and started growling at the figure at the foot of the bed. The growling then woke my sister up, and she saw the figure and started screaming. When my parents came into the room and turned on the light, nothing was there. To this day, both my sister and I are adamant that we saw a ghost or other demon in our room. We know we aren't crazy because the dog saw it too. Ooh, that was a good one. Let's see. Moving objects. Okay, this has a whole video to it too, which is crazy. Okay, let's see what they have to say. Okay, so just r dash paranormal encounters. I can't see who posted this, but I guess that's okay. I would have loved to give him credit. Okay, so this is taken legitimately on my camera roll off my old iPhone. I did not edit this in any way. I was home one night and my gosh darn power strip started clicking off and on, literally manually flipping to the off position and back on. It's like also going crazy. Clearly this scared me a bit, but I'm known to be one who doesn't back down. So I suppose I thought it would be a good idea to shit talk it, which I did. I ended up retreating for once. LOL. Not even gonna lie, when I was showing my wife the video, she was at work, the entire video had become grainy and now had what I considered sounds of hell and legitimate evil growling noises. Sort of like maybe the sounds of the gates of hell crashing closed. I don't know. I do not do this, and I've never had a single Apple product do this to any of my videos. We also had an 8-channel security camera system that caught this incident on 2 other cameras. There's also some strange dark anomaly beneath the curtain on the right that was not present. Make of it what you will, but I get goosebumps even talking about it with my wife. She's constantly urged me to share this video, but I keep it private about these things like this. I suppose it's time. Hope you enjoy. So it's got stuff like, and I'm just gonna play the video. Oh my god, yeah, a light is like turning off and on, off and on. And there's a slight tapping. And he's like calling this entity names and telling it F you. Yeah. I don't think it's good to antagonize anything, but it's kind of funny to watch people do that. Haunted house. This was posted 3 years ago by SoFlog. I don't believe in paranormal activity, but my grandparents' house is considered by many to be extremely haunted. It's part of a tour of haunted houses in the LA area, and according to legend, was part of the inspiration for American Horror Story. That's pretty cool. There are tons of stories, but the one I experienced myself was when I was living there as a child. I was about 6 years old, and my older sister was 12, and we shared a room. My mom had decorated our bedside table with an antique telephone that didn't work and was not plugged in. My sister and I were asleep, and for some reason we both woke up at the same time and turned to face each other. I remember feeling an extreme feeling of dread. Then the phone rang in between us. I would have picked up the phone and threw it out the door. Oh my goodness. We locked eyes and both hid under our blankets till it stopped ringing. We both thought it was a dream because we didn't say anything for years about it. The one day she was talking about it and we realized we had had the exact same experience. There are so many more stories, but that's the only one I experienced directly. And this one is an La Bruiser. She says, how do you make those truths jibe? I too am atheist and don't believe in the spiritual / supernatural, but I had the oddest experience at my mom's house. It's always the mom's house. I don't, or like the parents' house, the generation before. It's kind of weird. She and my sister were convinced it was haunted. I never lived there, built after I moved away to college, but I did come back home for a while mom was going through a divorce. That's sad, I'm sorry. They always complained about the upstairs was haunted. Faucets turning on and off, doors moving, that sort of thing. I chalked it up to faulty construction and leaned to the house. But one day I was taking a shower and I heard a soft thump from the bedroom. wrapped up my shower and the bath towel, which had been sitting on the sink, was balled up and chucked across the room into a bookshelf at least 10 feet away. I was home alone at the time, and I had no idea what happened. Charming. That was good. See. A ghostly visit. Um, I deleted this. Okay, not me, but my family. My grandfather was a bad man, alcoholic, extremely violent, tried to kill my grandmother in front of their kids. One of his less horrible acts was abandoning my grandmother with their 6 kids, all under the age of 12. Some of his kids maintained minimal contact with him. He lived about 30 or 40 miles from my grandmother and the 2 kids who'd stayed in the area. One second. When he was in his 80s, he was hospitalized and then passed away in the middle of the night. In the morning, his oldest child, one of my aunts, went to the morgue to identify the body and fill out the paperwork. On her way, she stopped by my grandmother's to break the news. When she came in, my grandmother said, "Oh, it's a sad day. He died just past midnight, I imagine." My grandmother had begun to show some signs of dementia or just basic old age, and so the weird comments weren't too out of the character, and my aunt assumed that the hospital, one of her siblings, had already called to tell their mother the news. My aunt shook it off and drove to the morgue. When she saw the death certificate, she was shocked to see the time of death listed as 12:10 a.m. On her way home, she stopped back at my grandmother's and asked her who had called her to tell her the news, and asked why she said that she thought he died just past midnight. My grandmother said, "He came to see me at 12:30, and we talked for a spell. He wanted to apologize for all he'd done to me and you kids. I think he made his peace and was able to move on, so I'm glad for that." My grandmother then resumed humming and doing a jigsaw puzzle. TLDR. My grandmother knew her ex-husband had died and the approximate time of his death because his ghost visited her in the middle of the night. Yeah, there's a lot of people that experience stuff like that. A loved one passing away, and then, their spirit comes to visit them. I think that's beautiful in a way. I like it anyway. It's kind of like a forewarning, I guess. And a last time to see them and say what you've got to say. That's how I feel about that, at least. All right, nursing home experiences. Ooh, these are like some of my favorite. I love these. Oh God. Yeah, this one comes from, it's a video. This one was from Deleted. My experience was there was a known shadow person in one halls, and rest of it was unexplainable brushes or the occasional touch. I watched a nurse's hair physically raise up, closing doors, death howlers. Some of the residents would go into screaming, howling fits before someone passed away. Occasionally, one of our parked locked car horns would honk. Just weird shit. That is unsettling as shit. Just imagine you're going through the hospital halls and, be bopping around doing your job, and all of a sudden you hear a bunch of people just screaming. No, thank you. No, thank you. That would be not okay for me. But yeah. Ooh, mirror reflections are not. I don't like those. I That's for the end of all this. Um, this one is mirror reflection by My War UK. My dad was in a hospital with a serious brain tumor. The hospital was about 40 miles from me, and he was in no shape to even keep awake. One night I was chatting to a friend on MSN, them days, yep, that was a long time ago, and he asked how my dad was. I turned to my left and I saw him sat in his chair just looking at me. I replied, think he's okay. Sat in the room with me. To which my friend said, isn't he in the hospital? I looked again and nothing. I never mentioned to anyone. Told my friend I must have been seeing things. Dad survived and still here today. Cut to about 21 years later. And I met up with my dad, just having a chat. And he says, something been on my mind for years, son, and you can't shake it off. When I was in the hospital, I remember being at home, sitting in my chair. You was on the computer and you looked at me. Then I woke up in the hospital, but it felt too real to be a dream. That's when I told him my experience. Insane. That would be, yeah, that's crazy. He definitely, I would like to say that was probably, he did some spiritual walking there, astral projection. That's what I think he did. Without even realizing it, he just was doing astral projection. Anyways, here are some stories from my family. One is from my dad, and it's kind of creepy, but it helps somebody. Anyway, when my dad was young, just he was a hoodlum. I mean, he was a hoodlum all the way up until his late 30s, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, him and his friends were driving around, getting high off of gasoline, and they're sitting there huffing this gasoline tank, just huffing the fumes. And all of a sudden, their friend in the back seat goes stock still. Doesn't say anything. Here, my dad is freaking out because he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, oh my God, like, this kid is not even breathing anymore. So my dad's like, oh shit, he's dead. Like, he OD'd, he's dead, he's not of this world anymore, and we're all screwed and we're going to jail. Well, finally, like, my dad gets him, shakes him. Everybody's like, hey, come on, man, come on, you gotta wake up. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Finally, this kid takes a deep breath in and exhales, and he's like, oh, hell no. No, 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 I need to leave. I need to go home. Whatever. They take him home. A few weeks pass, and they haven't seen this kid for a long while. So they stop by on their bikes and are like, hey, dude, I haven't seen you for a while. What's going on? So the kid sat there, and they all sat on his porch and everything, and they're like, why aren't you hanging out with us anymore after that, Why aren't you coming out and getting high and all that stuff with us anymore? And he goes, okay, this is going to sound crazy, but that last hit of gasoline that I took, I don't know what happened, but I felt a cold soul enter me. A cold soul entered you? Excuse me? Yeah, needless to say, that kid never huffed gasoline again. Ever again. Um, Stuff like that, drugs and stuff, opens people up. And it opens you up to be susceptible to possessions, attachments, a bunch of gnarly stuff. And you're so numb when you're high or drunk that you just don't realize it. So, yeah, people should really be careful about that. Another one is from my mom. And my mom had a really rough childhood growing up, but so they moved around a lot. But in this one house back in Washington State, which is where I'm from. What's up, T-Town? Miss you. Anyway, they're sitting there. Her and her brother are downstairs. They're watching TV. And all of a sudden, this toy truck, it's just like a little toy truck, rolls across the floor. And you can hear it very distinctly roll. And it's on this old wood floor. And it's just going by itself. Just rolling across the floor by itself. My mom and my my uncle got up and they left. They left that house and they did not come back until grandma was home. um, their mother, my grandmother, they did not come back until she was home. Let's see. Oh god, there's just so many stories. Um, so I now live in Wyoming, and the part where I live is very close to Sinks Canyon. Like it's an hour or so drive away. Anyway, I grew up walking those trails, going to the caverns, and there's this nice like cave with the river going through it. Still, it's really pretty and it's nice sandy, and it's just a really cool place to stay, especially during the summer, and it's just nice and relaxing. Well, um, about I'm gonna say 3 years ago, me and my husband were going on a picnic into the caves. And we're sitting there, and I'm just chilling, looking at stuff. We're just sitting there, relaxing, trying to eat. And I feel this urge in this, like, solemn, like, dark energy come through. And I get this urge of, like, urgency to leave and, or, like, to pay attention to what's going on around me. And then the voice starts telling me to leave, get out, leave. And it's very quiet. And I'm ignoring it. I'm just like, whatever. I'm ignoring it. It's fine. We're fine. It's daylight. It's fine, right? It gets louder and louder. And I'm sitting there, and my husband's starting to get kind of fidgety. I'm like, babe, are you hearing this? And he's like, I'm not hearing anything, but I feel like we should go. Something is like, I feel like we should go. Like, we should definitely leave. I'm like, okay, good. And as we're packing up, this voice is just going, leave, 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 leave. I'm just like, not in that tone, but I'm just like, shit, I'm trying. Okay, we're trying to go. We're packing up. We're leaving. And I say this out loud. And my husband's like, oh, shit. He's like, yeah, that feeling's getting harder and harder to ignore. It's like we're physically, it's so hard to explain because it's like, you're being pushed out of somewhere, like just being pushed and pushed and pushed, like mentally and emotionally, and your body is reacting to that push. So it's like physical. That's the only way I know how to explain it. Sorry. If you ever felt like, that feeling, we need to get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Well, The last thing I put away, wrap up in the blanket, and I hear, "Get out," loud. And it's in that cave, so it kind of echoed to me. And I was like, okay, yep, we need to go. We book it out of the back cave, and you have to climb up and out. Okay? I never had anything like that ever happen to me before there. So it was a really weird experience, to say the least. Honestly, I think something is trying to forewarn us. Like maybe the water was going to come gushing in really hard and we could drown. Or people have been eaten up there by mountain lions, which is great. So I really think it was just a warning. It didn't feel like it was, this is my land, you need to go. I think it was just a warning of, hey, right now is not a good time to be here, please go. So I left. We've visited since, but not in a while. Busy with work and stuff like that. Anyway, the final two stories are both connected to my parents, and I am, of course, in them. So one day I'm sitting, and it's in this house that I'm at right now. And my mom and my parents and my little brother lived with me at the time. And I'm sitting it's kind of like just an open floor plan, so there's nothing blocking your view from the kitchen to the doorway into the living room. Like, it's just a straight shot. It's a trailer house, right? It's a straight shot. You can see everything because of how the kitchen is situated. Like, you can see when people walk through the living room. Anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm focused doing all the dishes. And a little of my peripheral, I can see movement. So I turn a little bit and I'm like, oh, hey, I just see the back of my mom going. And I'm like, hey, mom. Hey, mom. 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 And I hear her bedroom door close. And I'm just like, whatever, dude. Whatever. I'll talk to her about it later. I continue doing the dishes. I'm about finished with the dishes at this point. And in walks my mom through the front door. 5 minutes. 5 minutes after I seen her walk into her bedroom. Fully seen the back of her. Fully seen her. Yep. My mom walks into the front door and I'm like, oh shit. I was like, hey mom, you just got home, didn't you? She goes, yeah, why? I was like, because I just seen you walk into your bedroom like 5 minutes ago. She goes, we need to do something about that because it's getting annoying. And it's dangerous and it's not okay. For some reason, we have this mimic that likes to mimic my mom. And it follows them. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, so throughout the years, I've heard my mom call me and she's not even in the house. And I just ignore it, because I grew up with this. My mom is very spiritual. My whole family is very, very, very spiritual and connected on both sides. So I grew up learning about this stuff and learning what to do and what not to do and learning the craft. So, yeah, I just ignored it, whatever. Another thing is this thing that's always been with my dad ever since I could remember. I mean, toddler years, I'd be walking to their bedroom and then all of a sudden I would jump around and run screaming, crying from their bed. I know exactly why. Now, a long time ago, I didn't. But this thing would sit in my parents' room and it was always there. Anytime any of us kids would go into that room, it would like scare us out. It would, I've had things thrown at me by it. Yeah, that was fun. I had a remote slide across the bed and drop at my feet. The TV would turn off. Oh, and the noisemaker that my dad had would turn on and turn off. And I would hear words come through it. Yep. I would hear the words, get out, in a very masculine, very deep voice. And no matter how many times we cleansed, no matter what we did, it stayed with us. And as I grew up, I noticed that my dad had a shadow. And then I noticed that that shadow was that thing that was constantly pushing us kids and making people feel uncomfortable in their bedroom. My dad's bedroom is like his quiet space, his little space. Well, 18 comes around. The first time I walked into his bedroom without being forced out by this entity, okay? Without being scared, without being threatened by it, without it, rearing its ugly head at me. And so I'm like, this is weird. This is not normal. Where did you go? And it pops up. And I'm like, taken aback a minute. I'm like, okay, you're here. And I'm waiting for it to, start trying to push me out of their room. And it doesn't. And I walk past it into my parents' bathroom, grab what I needed, like Q-tips or something, a hairbrush, I don't know. And then I started making the connection. That thing was actually my dad's protector. It's shield. It shoved us kids out of his room and stuff like that because that was his quiet space. That was his space. And the only time he really got a break was in his room. It's still with him today. It's his protector. Like, in a way, I feel like it was trying to protect us too. Because sometimes my dad would have horrible attitude, like, just terrible and kind of mean. And so I feel like it was trying to keep us separated from him and give my dad that space that he needed. Um, as kids grew up, like my brothers are still scared to death of my parents' room. They're not as adventurous as I am. They're not as anything paranormal. They're like, no, I don't want to fuck with that. Me, I'm like, I'm all up in your business. Let me see you. But that's because everything sees me for some reason. Uh, one light or another. But yeah, I grew up with that thing, and it was just my dad's protector. That's all it was. It's an ancestor of his that was just trying to keep the peace and keep him mellow and give him his space that he needed. And I think each one of us has that, but on varying different levels. Anyway, thank you so much for staying and listening to me blabber and reading those Reddit stories. They were fun. I think we can find scarier stuff though, right? Right. So, hopefully you find this video. If you do, cool. Like, leave a comment, be nice to people, love yourself, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye.